I made this dub techno pattern really because it's on the full track, and yeah, I posted it on TikTok, and someone reached out asking what the sound design and processing and all that is. Today I'm going to show you exactly that. We're going over each of the tracks that I have in my DAW, so and just sharing the processing and showing the samples that I used and showing how I process everything and a little bit of mixing, and you know, we're just going through every track of the project. And of course, if you like this content, make sure to follow and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss those videos. Okay, so let me show you the pattern real quick, or the groove. It's 32 steps long and goes like this. Alright, and so after 16 bars it's going to repeat. Really nice groove. All right, so what are we having here? As you can see, it's just a couple of tracks, and I basically have a few drums over here, 3 tracks of drum samples, and then I use Serum as a noisy hi-hat, and then I have this main chord step, a low chord, a high chord which is doing some atmospheric stuff in the background, and then we have a big Atmo chord that, as you can see from the sequencing here, just comes in every 4. Let's start with the chord step, and so that's the chord step, and so this is a track from it, and as you can see, well, you know what? Let's check out the original sound first, because let me bypass everything. So we have this sound and this sound, and as you can see in the sequencer, they just alternate every 2 bars. Very basic sounds. So if you like those samples, Dub Techno Chords Volume 1, links in the description box. Alright, so let's start with the processing. So the very first plugin that we have here is the J37 tape emulation, and all I'm doing here is, let's check. So because it has a very, very beautiful sounding delay section, which I'm using here, and as you can hear, so the left and right, they are always a little bit disconnected. That's because on the left channel we have 8th, and on the right channel we have 32s on the time signature, and setting it to ping pong makes it go back and forth in this nice pattern. Next is a mono delay, and now you're probably asking yourself, why in the hell did I first talk about a stereo delay when I then use a mono delay? Probably because I liked the stereo effect, but then figured the stereo effect was a bit too much for the overall sound, and went with a H delay mono. And the cool thing about this plugin is it has this analog emulation circuit. It's not really a circuit. There's analog emulation, and all 4 have different sound character, giving it some grit and some noise, and really like this one. Getting rid of the little bit of the highs on the delay, so it travels and stays in the background. Next we have the meta filter, also by Waves, and you will notice around that I'm a big fan of Waves plugins. They're just beautiful sounding, super versatile, and do the job that they're supposed to do. Alright, so I'm using a bandpass filter here that, as you can see here, is modulated by an LFO. And yeah, two special things that you can hear. Let me bring in this compressor so it's a little bit louder and more noticeable. So the one thing is that you can see that I have a mix knob over here. And so this would be the signal completely with the filter. But because of it being a bandpass filter, it misses some of the highs from the original sound. And by dialing the mix back, you're getting back some of the original sound. So it's basically like parallel filtering. And secondly, this filter has this spread knobs, which just makes the signal stereo again. And as you can see, this whole sound design thing is not always about pure logic, because first I made it stereo, then I made it mono again because I like the mono feel better, and then I figured just by fiddling around that I like this stereo thing better. And you always have to remember that when you are in sound design mode, that it's a creative process. It's not like a fixed recipe. Take the flour, take the sugar, add in the butter, add in the milk, stir for this long. And it's a process. It's a creative process. And I've probably got to the point of this sound design here by just trying and finding things that sound good. Of course, with experience, you gain a lot of knowledge about sweet spots. You gain a lot of experience on what sounds good and what doesn't. For example, stacking those delays. I've done this multiple times in different combinations, and over time you get a feel for what sounds great and what doesn't. So this is how you come up with those processing chains. And yeah, getting back to those sound, let me play it for you. It should come around. Yeah, there it is. And so the last thing that I do is do some more EQing. There was probably some low end that I didn't like and some high end that I wanted to get to dial back again. So usually I have those EQs last in chain, and of course I only add them when I have all the elements from the track ready. Because how do you know that you don't like the highs of that sound if you're not aware that they're interfering with the highs of a different sound? And mixing is a lot about making or giving priorities to certain instruments and elements. So am I rambling like a ton? I don't know. So the thing is with EQing and mixing, you should always do this last, and because otherwise you don't have any context, and you need context to figure out what a high end and low end you maybe not like on a specific sound, or which sound do you want to give the high end and which sound you want to give the low end. And that's something that you always have to consider when mixing. There's hardly any big rules like cut here at 500 hertz minus 3 dB, then boost at 6 kilohertz for 1.37 decibels. It's always going to come from hearing what sounds good and in context. So I do surgical stuff where I really find nagging frequencies in solo, but 90% of the time mix in context. How would you otherwise know that there's stuff interfering? So, all right, so getting back to the sound. So the last thing that I add is a compressor, just to get everything a little bit louder and denser and just glue the stuff together. That's pretty much it. So let's check out the next track. Oh, okay. So this one is, I hope you can hear it. It's very low in the background and it's just there to support and fill in the gaps of the kick drum. Now listen. Yeah. Oh, there's something special. And I say this because you probably notice that now everything is just on one side, on one channel. And that's because those sounds are, let me play you the originals because they are with filtering. All right, so these are the original sounds. Maybe a bit louder. All right, so as you can see, those are mono files. And because I wanted the bass to be in mono, I have a mono plug-in here, which is going to make everything that is left and right and slam it together into one track. And it does this by overlaying the independent signals. And what happens then is that you are getting phase issues, especially if you use stereo samples and sounds that have maybe like a reverb on them or have just a little bit of phasing, maybe a chorus, and you don't always know that. And when you break that down, when you slam it down to make to be mono again, whatever plugin you're using for that, I'm in this scenario just using a mono compressor. Now listen. It suddenly is all back in the middle. Now, because when everything is going back to mono, you overlay those both channels and you may get like a washed out sound. And to get around this, and that's the point I want to make, sorry for rambling around, the point I want to make is that if you set your sampler to complete pan left or right, what it does, it will always either play the right channel or the left channel. So the panning is basically just a mix knob of those two signals. If it's dead center, you have both channels equally loud. If it's set fully right, only the right channel is at 100% and the left channel is at 0% loudness. And what this does is it's kind of separating the individual channels, and when you mono them, they will be back in the center, but because you only have one channel that you move back into the center, you don't have a second channel, which can cause those nagging phase issues. So I hope that makes sense. And if you have questions, drop them in the comment box below. In this scenario, I just picked on both samples, so the right channel, and added some filtering within the sampler. Delay. All right, so the last plug-in for the bass, for this low chord, as I named it, is an EQ, the fab filter again. And as you can see, I got rid of some of the super low end because that's where the kick lives, and I also got rid of the muddy area around 200 Hertz, and this is just to make some space for other instruments that have more content. That's, yeah, again, this is about making priorities and figuring which sound needs the space more than the space, than this low chord needs this space. Hope that makes sense too. All right. Okay, so now we have something that is a little bit more complex. Well, probably not really. It's just a long list of effects. But first, let's check out this sound without any effects. And it sounds like this. It is just a sample, which if we play it at full, 2.2 seconds. Oh, super messy, but beautifully phasing and a lot of nice movement in there. And as the name implies, it's from the Virus TI, but also it's in the sample pack, I would say. What's happening here? We need to go into the sequencer, because as you can see here, what we're doing basically is, I hope you can see this. All right, so I do control the filter cutoff. Now take a look at the automation and on the filter setting. Not very spectacular, I know. So I like bandpass filters, so anybody who's been following me for some time knows that. So next, first plugin is of course, and I do this on every channel. It's a mix tool. Maybe I should mention this before I do anything. This is just to get the input gain of this track down to minus 12 dB. I do this for gain staging because later I'm going to add a bunch of effects, and I just want to keep everything at a nice gain level so nothing is clipping or distorting. So that's always the first plugin. I always do it at minus 12 dB. Then, all right, back to the effects. The first thing that we have is this beautiful H reverb from Waves, and it's in mono. I love mono reverb, always giving the sound a very dense and nice feeling. And as you can see, it's not a very super long delay reverb. Sorry, it's not a super long reverb tail, because as I know myself, I've probably added delay later. So, and yeah, there is already a delay. So to give it, so it's not getting too busy and too muddy. All right, then we're having a flanger, which is also doing the stereo. A bit boring without it. Yeah, again, this is a super ugly plugin, but sounds amazing. Again, Waves. Then we have the H delay, which is doing a ping pong. Now let's have a listen. Longer feedback time, and I've also high passed the low end from the delay. Just to make some space. It's always good to have filters and EQs on your effect chains. So there was just a little bit of mud, and I wanted to clean it up. So at around 700 hertz or something it was. Okay. Then we have a fab filter. Doing more high passing on the whole signal and then scooping out some of the harshness at around 3.5K. And then last but not least, a compressor. And then we have the trem. Okay, because I don't use the LFO tool from Xfer, but I wanted a cheap workaround side chaining effect. I use a tremolo plugin, which can do panning, but also can just do tremolo, so ramping the volume, and this emulates side chaining from a kick drum, and I can dial in with the depths. Now listen how much of it I want. So this would be 100%. So, and I think that was a 60%. That's pretty much it. Okay. And these are just like Atmo chords that come in from time to time, and it's 4 different samples. Let me play them to you unaffected. All from the Virus TI, and yeah, just a beautiful instrument, and I like to sample it, you know. I make those sample packs mostly because I want to feed them into my Octatrack, and yeah, I'm not always having the space, and yeah, when I'm traveling or on vacation, I just want to be able to have Virus sounds, so I just sampled a shit ton of those. Yeah. Okay, so what's in the sample chain? What's in the effect chain? Delay. Let me start this compressor. So end of chain usually is a compressor to bring everything to life, basically. Make everything louder. Okay, so with delay. And then we have a very interesting plugin. This one is from Arturia. It's a refracting thing, and yeah. And as you can hear, it makes everything a bit wobbly, washed out. And it was for free. I know that I got it for free. Same with the MS-20 filter emulation, also from Arturia's amazing plugin. And yeah, should always be on the lookout for free plugins by great companies. And then, lastly, of course, an EQ. Getting rid of the low end, because that's where the kick and our low chord lives. Then we have at 550 hertz. That's also usually an area which gets a little bit muddy. So because the samples they are having a lot of content in the low mids, it's always a good starting point to check out the low mids and see if there's. And maybe there is a need for attenuation. And then to move the sound really far into the back, a low pass, and then of course the compressor to glue everything back together and make everything a little bit denser. And that's pretty much it. We can of course check out the kick drum real quick. I usually layer my kick drums. So we have this low kick drum here. This is what it would sound. That's from the Syntakt. Yeah, that's from the Syntakt. Okay, so kick drums in dub techno, that's my take on it. I usually have one bigger, beefier kick drum and low pass a lot of it, and then I add a little tip on it just to give it this little gentle spike. I think spike is a little bit of a hard word for what it does and what it is, but as you can hear, it's very subtle because all I want it to be supporting the kick drum. I don't want it to be like super dominant, because there's a lot of other things that are super dominant, especially in this clicking area. And super short. Make it short, add a bandpass filter. And the reason why I do this in the sampler with the bandpass filter and the low pass filter is because I'm too lazy to split those channels up in the mixer section of the DAW. You could be doing this as well and send this pad or whatever DAW you use, but you could also, of course, send the low kick to a different channel, the higher kick part to another channel, and then glue everything together within a bus channel. And yeah, usually I just have some EQ here as well, getting rid of the super low end, getting rid of this, or attenuating this 500, no, that's 185 hertz. That's also very commonly an area that makes trouble. So to get rid of the boxiness and then cutting off some highs. As you listen. So kick drum, very easy. And this sounds just like a few samples, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, so this is the main hi-hat. (909) hi-hat, and then see, guys, and this is something that they don't teach you in school, as you can see. So this line means that's a sample starting point, and probably when listening to samples, I noticed that when I was playing it, that there was some beautiful noisy stuff coming at the end of the sample. And all I wanted is this section and area. So always be on the hunt and on the lookout for anything that is maybe in the background, maybe just a little noisy thing that sounds great that you like. And on this, it sounds like a reverb tail from a hi-hat. And here we have just another reverb tail, and it gives you this groove and this hi-hat on top, and you're done. Doing some EQing, and you might notice already that I've taken away a lot of high end from the hi-hat. That's because I also have noise. It's just a high-passed noise groove from Serum. Because if you use samples, they are static, and even noise, that's something that you can try out for yourself. Record a couple of seconds, record a couple of seconds of noise, and then listen to that over and over again, and you will notice our ears are such a great and amazing tools for that. You will notice that you can hear it repeating, and that sounds bad. I don't like that. So what I like to do is you can either alternate the starting position, but not all samplers can do that. And this Impact XT from Studio One, which is just the stock plugin from within Studio One, it can't do that. You can't randomize or change via an LFO the starting point of a sample. And to get rid of the static sound, I just tend to use synths. And in this case, as you can see, phase is randomized and starting point is randomized. So every time a note gets hit, the starting point is always different, and that's more pleasant and more pretty for the ear. Then we have a clap. I like my claps really short, and this one is from, it sounds like it from the TR-8S. No, it's something that I made, but whatever. So it's just a clap. So it's just a clap and some EQing again, making sure the low end, making sure that the lower area is not interfering with anything that lives in this area, and some reduction of the high end here, because we have other things that, as you can hear, there's a lot of stuff going on, and that would interfere with the noise. So it's a little bit rounder, a little bit more gentle, but fits in very nicely with the overall sound. So that's pretty much it, my friend. Super glad that you stayed around for so long. Means that I was giving you, hopefully, a ton of insights on sound design and mixing and a few other cool things. If you want to know more about the whole thing, if you have any more questions about this beat, about this groove, about production, sound design, making samples, all that stuff, let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you like this content, make sure to follow and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss those videos. Okay, so if you liked the samples that I used in this track, check out the sample pack, links in the description box below.